I was recently thinking about this story of Lazarus that we read about in John 11. And you will probably remember that Lazarus was a man who was a friend of Jesus. Lazarus and his sisters Mary and Martha, had often had Jesus into their home. And the writer describes Lazarus as someone that Jesus loved. And yet, Lazarus gets sick. Word comes to Jesus to please come, and Jesus delays, and Lazarus dies. And when Jesus comes, and Lazarus is already dead and buried, both of his sisters, Martha and Mary, in separate conversations, say to Jesus, "If you had been here, our brother would not have died. If you had been here, he would still be alive." And on the one hand, you could say that is a statement of faith, that they trust in the fact that Jesus had the ability to heal. But in another sense, it's really a statement of, if you had been here and you did what we wanted you to do, our brother wouldn't have died. And that's a pretty big assumption. The fact that Jesus' presence might have been there does not guarantee that his actions would have been in line with what Mary and Martha wanted. And I think sometimes we find ourselves in that same position. We're dealing with questions of broken relationships. And we're like, Lord, if you were here, this would be fixed. Dealing with questions of maybe infertility. Lord, if you were here, we wouldn't be going through this. Dealing with loss. Lord, if you were here, this wouldn't have happened. But the reality is, God is here. His word promises that he is with us. But sometimes in spite of his presence, he allows us to go through difficult things, to sometimes grow us spiritually, to sometimes show his glory and his goodness to those around us, and sometimes for purposes that we can't identify. In the case of Lazarus, Jesus' delay was intentional. It was so that he could raise Lazarus from the dead, so that his power and God's glory would be seen. In the questions in our lives, we don't always know why God chooses to do something. But we can trust two things. We can trust that he is here, and we can trust that he loves us. He's working things for our good. And so when we're in those situations, we need to trust who God is, not who we want him to be and how we want him to act. I would encourage you to think about today, what is some area of your life where, like Martha and Mary, you're kind of feeling like, God, if you were really present, this wouldn't be happening. And then remember that the fact of the matter is he is present. So if this is happening, maybe we need to think about what is its purpose. And maybe we need to relinquish even our right to know what his purposes are. And instead, just trust in who he is, in his character, in his presence, in his love for us, and in his ability to do things for our good, even things that seem hard.